Hey everybody, Jen Hatmaker here, your host of the For the Love podcast. Welcome to the show. You guys, this is a good one. Right now, we are in a series called For the Love of Faith Shakers. I don't think I need to explain why I like this conversation, why I like this guest roster. I love people who push us past our comfort zones, who ask hard questions, who bring us a different perspective, a different angle, who challenge unjust systems, even if they are cloaked in essentially the impeachability of faith, right? And so we're focusing on the people doing dynamic and different things in faith spaces and how their moves are positively impacting the world, even people of faith. And so today's conversation is really, really interesting because we are locating this discussion in a place where so many of us find it really hard to show love, which is evidently the cornerstone of faith, if you read it like that. And that is this very highly divisive political landscape, right? Like, what a mess. We are just convinced that we are right. All of us are. And that if we are right, that everybody else is categorically wrong and against good in the world, right? It's gotten to that point. And then, of course, religion gets caught in the crossfire as it is often and has forever been weaponized against certain groups, certain communities, or it is used to uphold long-held broken systems that don't sincerely have a biblical basis at all, right? And they're even anti-biblical. Or it's even universally blamed for all the ills, when sometimes the weaponization we see are these radical factions of religion who just tarnish it, right? And I think all this behavior works against people who truly do want to love in Jesus' name. And it's 100% pushing people further away, not just from God, but from even the understanding that God is actually love, right? Like that, there isn't another category. It is God is love and all love and only love, right? We knew we wanted to locate one of these episodes in DC, which is tricky, right? And it's not all one thing, but it's important because it's representative of our public discourse. And then more importantly, the direction of our country, legislation, policy, rhetoric. And so looking at this very highly emotional and volatile and even nuanced topic, we needed somebody who could take it apart compassionately and who has been standing on the front lines. So to help us really understand and digest what it is we've been seeing and watching from an insider's perspective. So you guys, I'm so happy to welcome this week's Faith Shaker, Lisa Schultz, to the show. Let me tell you about Lisa. She is the chief of staff for United States Senate Chaplain Barry Black. Okay, did you know that the Senate had a chaplain? Well, you're about to find out more about that. She directs all of Chaplain Black's programs and outreach to all senators, their families, and any Senate staff. Okay, can you imagine this work? She's been in this position for 15 years and has been overseeing all Capitol Hill focused ministries. Like, that intersection is bananas, right? And just FYI, prior to her job on Capitol Hill, she was a missionary in Austria for 7 years. This conversation you're going to love it. We really get into what does faith look like in Washington, D.C. right now? What is the faith of our government leaders look like right now? How are you bridging faith conversations in a bipartisan way when nothing is bipartisan ever, anywhere anymore? What are you seeing? What's hopeful? What's scary? It's all in here. Okay, Lisa was incredibly transparent, really forthcoming with her perspective and experience, and also hopeful. There's some hope baked into this conversation, which I'm so glad for. And so she has a very unique perspective on faith in our highly charged political world. And so glad that you are here to dig in with us today. I'm I'm just very pleased to share my conversation with the absolutely wonderful Lisa Schultz. Lisa, I am so genuinely excited to have you on the show today. I am so looking forward to hearing about your work and your opinions and your take on things right now. And thank you for making time for this out of your bonkers schedule.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking me to be on. It's my second podcast ever. So this is
are you serious?
This is it. I'm usually really behind the scenes and I like to ask questions. So, yeah, this is very uncomfortable, but good.
You're doing incredible. So, okay, Lisa, I've filled my listeners in already a little bit about who you are, but for those who are new to you and your work, would you mind sort of high leveling for us who you are, who your people are, where you are, what you do?
I grew up in Oklahoma City, a little bit like you, Jen.
Yeah.
And went to Oklahoma State, went to University of Central Oklahoma. Then I spent my 20s in a ski town in Austria, which is random, I know, but really fun. And then my parents moved from Oklahoma City to DC, and I wanted to live somewhere a little bit more international when I came back. And so I moved into their top of their house when I was 28, their attic. And that's how I ended up in DC. And then I met my husband a couple of years later, Tim, who's from Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah.
But planted in DC. And I have 2 kids, 2 boys that keep me very busy, 9 and 11.
Yeah.
I'm an Anglican. I work for the ACNA. I'm a reverend now. I got ordained a year ago, which
I love it.
Crazy.
I love it so much.
And I also have done 19 years of work on Capitol Hill and 15 years for the Senate chaplain. And so I'm currently the Senate chaplain's chief of staff. So that's the high level.
Can you just, for those of us who don't exactly understand what it means to be the Senate chaplain, and his chief of staff, can you kind of talk about that position a little bit, how it functions, what's its parameters, how long has that position been in play?
Yeah. So you probably don't. Do you know much about it, Jen?
I don't know much about it. This is why I told you I am genuinely excited to hear from you today. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's something faithish going on in DC with our senators. How wonderful. So tell us more.
Okay. So we've always had prayer as a country before the Senate or before our legislative body convenes. So we've always opened our legislative body in prayer. This was even before we were a country. So good trivia. And this has just been a historical thing our country's always had. We've always had a chaplain. It used to be rotating chaplains. They used to bring in clergy from DC to the Capitol to pray. But then they made a position. And so my boss is currently the 62nd chaplain. And when the 61st chaplain came, he thought it was crazy just to have one person to minister to 9,000 people in the Senate.
Imagine. Yeah.
He spoke with the majority leader and said, hey, I really need a staff to do this kind of work. I need a staff and a budget. And so the Senate voted to give him a staff to have a little budget to minister essentially to people of all faiths in the Senate community. And this is very important because senators are not with their faith community when they're in DC. They fly in for the week and then they go home. So we are available. Everything we do mainly is personal and confidential. And because I'm a Christian, I can minister out of my faith tradition. So I'm able to lead Bible studies. My boss is also a Christian, and so he does that as well. So we have various groups that meet throughout the week, Bible studies for senators and for staff and for chiefs of staff. And so chiefs of staff are the people that run the offices for the senators on Capitol Hill. So that's what I do for Chaplain Black. That's the condensed version.
I really can only imagine. It's fascinating to hear you say this for a million reasons. Just my brain is just working through the logistics of a position like yours that has kind of a faith forward posture with the Senate that is all over the place, like all over the place. I mean, your work is obviously bipartisan, like clearly, but you're not working with a bipartisan body of people. And so this feels complicated. And I just have a million questions. Like, I think, the political landscape in the US right now is it's so volatile, and it's so divided. And there's a lot of things going on right now in our country, just among the general population, that feel scary. Things in my lifetime, I never expected democracy to feel wobbly. And so I have a lot of questions around this for you, but let's start here.
It's been a lot.
Let's start here. Can you talk about let's just say loosely, like the last 6-7 years. Let's kind of go there in that time frame.
Okay.
Have looked like for you, like from your side of things, as you are dealing in a carte blanche way with senators from both political parties and from every state in the United States. How has this work been for you? I'm just so curious what you've seen and how, if at all, and maybe you'll say no, but if your work has shifted, if your ministry has had to shift a little.
Yeah, I think it's been a really stressful few years, if I'm really honest and reflective over what's happened. And I was talking with my coworker yesterday about this, like, what has it been like for us as we've been on the Hill? I've been in this office for 15 years. So I started, I think I remember when Obama had his, when he was sworn in, and that felt scary for some people, but then, that died down. And then I think for me, I remember the moment that my husband and I, we had a wedding anniversary, and we went to this cute little Airbnb on the Eastern Shore, and we're in bed, and just like DC people, we're like, oh, the second debate is on tonight. We should
totally romantic. That's sexy. That's really sexy. Like anniversary trip behavior.
We should turn on the debate. So normally debates are really boring. Politicians, it drives me crazy because I'm very transparent. And there's a lot of not answering questions.
Sure.
And so on this debate, it was the second one that Trump and Hillary had. And I don't know if you remember it. I actually watched it yesterday to remind myself of what happened, because it just was glued into my mind, but I couldn't remember the specifics. And it was the one where they were up walking around.
I do remember.
Saturday Night Live skits. But I remember, like, we both kind of pulled the blankets over our heads, and I think we were both just shocked at what was said. Like, I think things before were kind of kept in. You might just play nice, and people really, they might be at each other during the game, right? During this political debate, but they were nice to each other afterwards.
Of course, there's like a respect inside of it, right?
Yeah, there was decorum, and I felt like during that debate something changed, and it changed for me. I think just what happened at that point to me was the turning point. I'm not blaming that completely on Trump. I'm just saying that I felt like it kind of opened the door to a level of discussion that maybe would have just been kept down before. And it maybe gave freedom to share more openly, whether it be on social media or with your family or friends.
That's right.
And I think it started causing this, just a fire. There's the Bible verse that talks about your tongue is a raging fire, right? Like a little spark, and it'll set the whole forest on fire, blaze. And I just feel like something happened then. And then it became, we had the election, and then it was the Women's March. And then we had the Kavanaugh hearings.
Gosh.
And I remember during the Kavanaugh hearings, I went over to the Senate Hart building to give a letter to a friend that I knew was just having a really hard day. And in the Senate Hart building, you can kind of look over and see the bottom from all of the different floors, and the screaming, there was this like reverberation of noise, and I was scared. Like I've never been scared at my job, but I was scared because people were just screaming. And I just said, I'm going home. I got in the elevator, got in my car, and I went home. And because I thought like something could happen here. And it just felt, and then, so that was the Kavanaugh thing. And then we had, I think something about, and I can't remember what it was, but Trump and the borders, like he wouldn't allow certain people to come in. And so then there was nuns laying down in the rotunda, and there was, and we had that. And then we had the impeachment. And then we had,
it was nonstop.
Second impeachment. It was nonstop.
It was nonstop.
It was nonstop.
Yeah.
So I think I felt like it was like triage. In fact, during the impeachment in the Senate, I said to my staff, we're going to be like this rest stop. We're going to be like a triage center, and we're going to have baked home goods.
Like gave me goosebumps.
And just invite all the media to come in, and just people to like come in and get something to eat, because it was just 24/7. And
oh my gosh.
So it's just been like breaking news. That's like the word that comes to me, like breaking news every day. I felt like, so I feel like that's,
I can only imagine how difficult that made your ministry. Because we experienced that same just absolute disruption as just ordinary people who live in our cities, and we don't work on at the Capitol. And so when I think about that, your proximity to that level of absolutely like discourse that was in the gutter, and all these edges that we've managed to sort of keep more or less tidy for a few hundred years, just fraying. And then in the middle of that, your work is to provide faith counsel and ministry and like service to people's hearts and souls. I just cannot imagine the lift that was. And I'm curious, like from a practical standpoint, when you're serving the Senate in the capacity that you do, even in this last little season of our historical story here, are these people coming together from two different sides in a, is that over? Like, I'm trying to think of you in a room leading prayer or a Bible study with 50% Republican senators and 50% Democrat senators. I can't think of it. My brain won't give me the vision.
I know. It's sad. It's really sad because we've come to that you would even say that, like that would be a thought, right?
It is sad.
Society has come to this point where we are no longer able to. There was a study that came out recently that said a fourth of Americans have considered moving because of politics. Actually, like
a fourth
of Americans. And I've seen that happen in DC. So like, I completely believe it because I've seen it happen. But I mean, it's that might be going on out there, but I feel like my calling and my job is, especially as a Christian, is to, I feel privileged to be around people who are different than me. And I hope that God has made me a peacemaker. That's what I'm trying to be. And my boss is definitely a peacemaker, much more than me. That's what we aim to do. And we aim to bring a culture of peace and unity amongst people that believe very different than one another.
Absolutely.
And it's actually fairly easy when you know someone that's different than you, because it's really hard. It's hard to love. It's hard to hate people that you know.
Absolutely. You know? Proximity is magic. It is.
It's magic. I've seen that in my own neighborhood. I've seen it in my church. I've seen it in my work. Even yesterday at a Bible study, and I have a girl there who works for a very conservative senator, one of the most conservative. And I have another girl that works for one of the most liberal, and we're there because we share faith, and we have these beautiful, amazing conversations. And I think it just helps take the noise down.
It encourages me to hear you say that. that there are pockets, even as we speak, of people coming together across political lines, because how it feels to us out here in the real world is that no one's crossing a line of any line, anywhere, anytime. That's how it feels. And so, the last time I was up on Capitol Hill, I was there on behalf of an organization I support. We were essentially lobbying for the continued funding of global nutrition and sort of health intervention. Yeah. And it was interesting to be there. And so we're going from office to office with all of these mostly Republican representatives, trying to talk them into this bill. And it was interesting that on the ground, there's a little bit, it's a little bit more nuanced than the story we seem to be getting all the time. There's more cooperation. Like we sat around tables with people from all over. We had we had one meeting with all like female chiefs of staff across the lines. Yeah. They were all, and they were friends, and they took trips together, and like they were collaborating. And I'm like, this story doesn't get told. This isn't a part that we see. And it encourages me to hear you say from your work, from your side of things. Can I ask you this? What's your perspective? And this is a really broad question, and they're obviously not a monolith, so I don't really know how you're going to answer this, but what's your perspective on the faith of our political leaders as a whole right now? Like, what's your take on it? Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Is it gaining traction? Is it losing traction? Because you've been there a long enough time to really see some cycles.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised. I think I would love to be able to, to share more. So much of what we do is confidential, but like I did actually, you know what? The other day I told someone that a certain senator was in a certain group and doing a certain thing, was growing in faith.
I see.
And this person was shocked, like shocked.
Yeah.
Are you joking? Are you joking? She actually comes to Bible study. And I said, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And
I love it.
So these are the things that I get to see. And it's just sad. I think that we are so political and so divisive that it's hard for some Christians, for both political parties, if you're in one party or the other, to understand that God is working in people of a different party.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah, the senator might be of one party that you're not, but she's growing in her faith.
That's great.
And it is a beautiful thing, and she might not agree with all the issues you agree with and you think are important, but that does not diminish that God is working in her life. And by the way, that she bears the image of God, like it gets my blood boiling a little bit because we're so quick to say, what is the label that, we put on that person? You're a Democrat or Republican. And if I'm a Republican, I'm not, this is a broad brush, right?
Sure.
This is not everybody, but I think we tend to think, oh, I'm surprised,
Totally. Yes. You're not wrong.
And it's sad. It's really, really sad.
I love this. Me too. And it hasn't always been this way. I think that is it's a bitter pill to swallow. One of my really close friends, her grandfather was President Ford. And it's really interesting to hear her tell stories that President Ford would tell. And of course, obviously Betty Ford. And this wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. And she would tell stories about how, like in DC, they'd all the senators would be there, and they'd have their like verbal brawls in the on the floor, and they'd go
smoke outside.
Then they'd go to dinner together. Like they'd go to dinner, they'd go to church together on Sunday. Like they just, they had this intellectual sort of spar, but then personally, nobody was dreaming of saying, well, because of your affiliation, I therefore know your character. Right. Which is how it is now. And that's what you're saying. And that's happening at the DC level, but it's happening like in our neighborhoods. It's the same. It's everywhere.
I hear it.
What do we do?
All of my friends. I hear it from all of my friends. And I think one of the things, it's really disheartening for me. And I would just say, even as a person of faith, as a Christian, I just mourn, like I mourn the rhetoric and the way we talk about one another and the inability we have to look at the other. And I think that is because we have so separated ourselves from people. So I want to go and live in a conservative place. I want to go live in a more progressive place. I'm going to, on and on. I live in a neighborhood that is so politically diverse. And thank God we have like the swim pool. So, and we have the town hall that we can actually have when we were little, we'd take our babies there and we'd play with one another. I mean, thank God we have those things in common. Like we're at the park together.
Of course.
So because we're at the park together, I cannot hate this person. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I know exactly where this person works, but I can't hate that person because I see them at the park and I play with their kids and we're at the pool together. And so, but I don't think a lot of, I talked to my mom about this or my sisters, and this is not what's happening in their worlds. And so I feel really privileged to live in a place that's diverse. And I try and find people, especially Christians, that believe differently than me politically. And I want to know, what do you believe? What do you what drives you? What was it about your past or how you grew up or all of these things that make
great
you
questions.
Believe who you are, make you who you are. Why are you passionate about being pro-life? Why did you vote for Donald Trump? Can you tell me? Can you explain that to me? Why are you liberal? Why are you, why do you care about the environment? And all of these things. And these conversations have to be happening. But
absolutely.
Even in my own church, we'll talk about something. My pastor tries to be really good about bringing up both sides of whatever.
Yeah.
But it'll trigger people,
Of course.
And we all like to feel like we belong and we're validated, you know what I mean, in our beliefs. And so it's hard when maybe we aren't, when we're around different people. And
I love the questions that you just modeled. I think that is a really strong path forward. This sense of being across from somebody who is ideologically different, politically different, whatever, experientially different, and prioritizing connection over just being right. That's
absolutely.
If connection is our goal, well, that takes the pressure off our clever talking points or being essentially a pundit, like an amateur pundit. But that then allows us to say, tell me more about that. What scares you about that? Or how did you grow up? Or what did your parents say? All of a sudden it's a human.
Barriers.
Of course.
Absolutely. But I'm not saying I'm perfect at this. And I have moments
me neither.
where I have to grow. And even the other day, there was a senator who was just getting under my skin. They were playing back this thing on TV and I found myself just the hate welling up. And the anger. And I thought, oh my word, I am so angry right now. And I know this person's chief of staff and I know him and I love this man. I love this chief. And I know that he has issues right now with his kids and I've been praying for him. And so I thought, okay, I need to reach out to him and send him an email and say, hey, by the way, how are your kids doing? What's going on in your life?
It's good.
Because that to me was able to heal my soul, because I can't stay in this place where I'm dehumanizing the senator.
That's so good. Oh, that's such a wise and mature way to handle your own reaction to somebody, like to steer into the curve of connection and compassion. Because that we can send our thoughts ahead of us and they will lead us. Like, you know what I mean? We will follow them where they go. So if your thoughts just go straight to, I hate this guy. Like, I hope he loses this job. Then that's how we're going to feel. And so it's almost like you can fake your way toward like, oh, how are your kids? Like you're making yourself be that way. And then before you know it, your heart softened to that person again. That's how it works. I know us, community, we take care of our people. We always show up for them and we take on things that aren't even ours. But how often do we give ourselves the same care, right? Like how often do you show up for you? Because you matter just as much as anyone else does. And BetterHelp Online Therapy is putting a little reminder in your ear about this very thing, because therapy is one of the best ways I know how to show up for myself and take care of my mental health. I am absolutely protective of my therapy appointments. They are just as important as any other thing in my day. BetterHelp makes that part easy because it's all online with like video, phone, or live chat sessions with your therapist. So wherever you are, you can do this. And you don't even have to see anyone on camera if that's not your thing. BetterHelp is also much more affordable than in-person therapy, and it's efficient. You can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. So here's the gentle nudge to prioritize yourself with this critical form of self-care. Give BetterHelp Online Therapy a try and see why over 2 million people have used it. This podcast is actually sponsored by BetterHelp. And For the Love podcast listeners, get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/forthelove. That's BetterHelp.com/forthelove. Over the last year or so, I've really doubled down on my skincare. And where I've landed is this: I want my potions to be made with clean, simple, vegan ingredients, but I also want them to actually work, which can be a tall order. But I started putting Osea in rotation recently, and you guys, I am impressed. Osea has been making clean, effective skincare for 25 years, so they know the ropes. And they have all the award-winning cleansers and serums and face moisturizers to prove it. But they're also known for creating amazing body products, like their famous body oil. Y'all, this oil makes your skin glow, literally. It transforms my dull, dry, wintry skin to soft, smooth, and nourished skin in like seconds. Since the first time I tried this, I don't think one day has gone by that I haven't used it. Osea also just released a body butter that works magic on dry or crepey skin with its lush, hydrating richness and no stickiness. It's been proven to moisturize skin for up to 72 hours. So find your new skincare favorites at OseaMalibu.com and get a special discount just for our listeners. So get 10% off your first order with promo code FORTHELOVE at OSEAMalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order, and orders over $50 get free shipping. You're going to want it all. Go to OSEAMalibu.com and then use the code FORTHELOVE. I want to ask you this, Lisa, and this is kind of a higher level question that probably has a lot of tendrils. Do you believe, and what's your perspective? Do you think that faith has been weaponized in the political arena? I'm curious if it is, if you have experienced it as a tool, not necessarily something deeply genuine and sincere, but more like a useful tool with an agenda at the end of it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe in my own faith tradition, right? That I'm fighting against the world, the flesh, and the devil. And I think that most people are, and we so often, in the name of God or whatever you believe, right, can justify a lot of different actions and behaviors. And you pull these things in, and the way that, faith and politics and religion all kind of intermingle. Yeah. And that's why I feel like I have to be so quick to listen to the Holy Spirit in my life.
Yeah.
To confess and repent and to live in a way that's a constant, because I see this all over. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that that's what's happening,
And that's happening across the spectrum. At least that's how I feel, that faith is a usable topic, and it serves a bottom line. And that's not just on a conservative side of things. It can be on a liberal side of things as well. Just depends on which pocket of faith you want to pick up, like what's your deal? It's all in there. You can pick what you want. I wonder, and I'm asking you really just to speculate here, but do you think that the way that we see faith essentially used in the political arena has impacted the way that just U.S. citizens have viewed the church, have viewed organized religion? Do you think this political turmoil and has bled into what statistics are telling us is genuinely like a mass exodus from church right now?
It's a hard question.
It's hard to parse out.
Yeah, it's hard to parse out. I don't know what's driving that. I don't know what's driving. I could speculate.
Yeah.
I'm sure politics has played in with those things, I think I have just been more concerned about, as a Christian, the Christian witness of
me too,
of the destructive words and the way we view other.
Me too.
So that's been my big thing that has really saddened me and concerned me, when we can so easily talk about people in a way that clearly not. I mean, Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers,
of course,
for they will see." These are So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it has. I think people have been disillusioned. I remember there was this group of girls when I first moved to my neighborhood and had my child. Actually, I met this girl at the park, and we became great friends. And she's very progressive. Has faith different than mine. I'm not sure actually what her faith is in. But she was getting a women's group during the winter because it's freezing in the winter. And, we got to survive. So let's go to the spa. Let's go away for the weekend, a girls' weekend. So we went, and I remember we shared a room, and I love this girl. We've become just great friends. And she said, "You're pro-life, aren't you?"
Like whisper, like her voice comes down kind of low. Like, just tell me, you can tell me. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. And surely I probably was the only one. I mean, I'm middle of the road about most things, but that's touched my family, and it's important to me. And it's not something I talk about in my work or other things, but it was just interesting that we, and then we laughed about it. And we, that weekend was just so great to be with people that, again, it's this, but I did think in the back of my head, how's she going to view me, because of that, just that, are they all going to say, "Oh, Lisa, she's the one, go home, Lisa." But no, they were wonderful, and they're still good friends, and they've taught me a lot about who God is in different ways,
Sure.
To see the image of God in them. So I don't know. It's a tough question, but I'm afraid that over the past few years, people will start thinking of Christ followers as more of a political party, whether it be one or the other. And people who, for example, I don't post anything about politics on social media because of my job, but I did when Biden won. And actually my friend was my dear friend who lives in my neighborhood, was Kamala Harris's chief of staff. Still a great friend. And we, she helped her write her speech, her speech about girls, and this is the step forward for girls. And anyway, and I was thinking of her when I wrote this, when my husband wrote this, and we just wrote, "Congratulations to the new president."
Sure.
And at that point, I wasn't thinking, people weren't really saying he's the president yet, right? Because
of course. Well, that's never been a thing we've ever said. So why would we have no precedents for that response?
I just was I wasn't thinking. And so my husband wrote this on Facebook. He just said, congratulations to the new president. And he didn't mean that by like, I am supporting, I voted for, there was nothing like that, right? It was nothing. It's just congratulations.
Sure.
And, partly probably I was thinking of my friend who,
sure.
like spent her last few years of running this campaign and being away from her children. And anyway, so I reshared it or whatever, reposted it or whatever it is on Facebook. And I got messages, like really painful messages.
Yeah.
Like, did you vote for him? Did you like just awful stuff? And I thought, oh my gosh, this is why I haven't posted anything.
Yeah.
But I actually didn't think that post would be bad. And it
feels neutral.
It felt so neutral to me.
Totally.
And my boss is so good. He says, my boss is so amazing. And he says, when anyone says anything nasty to him, which they do, he'll say, just answer and say, pray for me that I'm filled with the Holy Spirit and wisdom. And I thought of that. And I just wrote back and I said, please pray for me that I'm full of the Holy Spirit and wisdom.
What a lovely answer.
I had to do that last week about a mask mandate at the kids' school because I had a low moment where I wrote something on someone else's post on Facebook and I got a message and I pulled over in the parking lot at Costco. I was on my way to Costco and I got a message from another mom and I just had to stop and pray. I called a friend and we prayed for our school. We prayed for the other parents who are different than we are. And I just said, I can't engage because it's not healthy for my soul. Like, it's just not, it will not take me to a good place. And yes, there's a time to speak up and a time, but neutrality, things that should be somewhat neutral have become land bomb, like explosions.
Like the pandemic, which you're kind of alluding to, like this isn't a partisan, it's not a partisan pandemic. It's a global pandemic and
everyone.
And at the beginning, I just remember thinking, we're in this together. I'm like, if there is anything that we are in together, it is this. Like this in some weird way is going to draw us together because collectively this is ours to fight. And then it's like, it's science-based, which again, it's science. It's science. What? That's neutral. It's just, and so even just watching what to me feels like an unimpeachable connective point. Like you are my neighbor. I don't care who you voted for. It isn't. Now it isn't.
It's become political.
It's so political.
It is again. I know. It is unbelievable.
It's shocking.
It's shocking. It's shocking.
Yes.
It's shocking. And so I would say to your listeners, find people that don't believe the same way and ask them over for dinner.
That's good.
And if they don't want to mask up, then eat with them outside. You know what I mean? But like talk to them and get to know them. And like, it just can be one person, but like, we can't
this
live
is good.
Way. It will be
good.
So destructive if we continue in these patterns. Like
I know.
we continue down this road.
Yep.
I'm like, wow, my kids, like, what kind of world are you going to be living in?
So much so. And I like how your leadership is working on this podcast right now, because I think it's a temptation for just the ordinary citizen folks like us to put the onus on our government leaders, on our political leaders, like y'all do better. Y'all behave, start acting right, like start working together and stop leading our country into the gutter. And, we're pushing it up there in terms of this is an example that you're setting for the country and it's y'all's to fix. But really, I think we'll vote. We'll vote, but you guys behave. Like we're sick of this. So, but really, it's down on the ground. It's in our neighborhoods. It's the moms at our schools. It's the dinners we're willing to have with people that are ideologically misaligned with us. That's where it happens. It happens on the ground.
It's really
one
hard.
Conversation at a time.
Hard.
So hard.
So hard. And I mean, I have to catch myself, like, really, I'm like the chief of sinners in this, like it is so hard sometimes.
And it's not rewarded. Like reaching out to somebody who is not a part of your camp is like, how dare you? Like, we don't associate with them because of this, and this. You're being soft. You know what I mean? Like it's punished behavior from the silos. And so, I mean, it really is hard.
Absolutely. So I had started like a blog for my neighborhood as a way of reaching out. Or we actually do like a Christmas progressive dinner. And so we have different people host and we all get together. And I mean, it's just lovely. Like I want people to meet each other so badly. But anyway, I posted something, or actually I didn't. I decided I want to have other people post. And you know what? It's not just going to be my voice as a Christian. I'm going to have other people post because they can post things about their part of the community. Yeah. Right. But yeah, what happened? I mean, so it's like, again, it's not rewarded.
That's right.
And I grieve it.
I do too. Brene Brown calls that braving the wilderness, where you kind of stand outside your camp and you're true to your own convictions. You're true to your own hope for reconnection and reconciliation. And neither camp is happy about it. It's the wilderness. Like you are out there by yourself, like forging, you're like plowing up a new path that isn't just so divided. And that is really hard work. But I just feel like if we are unable to take it on, who will? Like really, who will? Are we just going to watch our culture and our country just create a chasm that eventually becomes too big to bridge? I hope not. I hope not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what drives me is my faith in Christ. Like, and that's exactly how, Jesus lived and what he calls his followers to do.
That's right.
And so anyway.
Yeah, that's our lead horse, the example that Jesus set for us is that, I believe, also is our way through and out. This constant preferring one another, this sense of giving honor to disenfranchised and marginalized people, that we is better than me, all of it, like the whole worldview, the whole thing. The way that we respond to each other, the way that we're like slow to speak and quick to listen. This idea of community, it's just so vital, right? Studies have proven again and again that people in community have markedly improved physical, mental, and emotional health. So in the Jen Hatmaker Book Club, we talk about books every month, of course, yes. And we have all the bells and whistles to support that book talk. It's incredible. But what really we love the absolute most is each other. Our book clubbers support each other, like in the hard times. We celebrate each other in the good times. It's like magic. These are real, authentic, genuine connections that happen in our private face group, but also in real life. You guys, we have local chapters in cities and towns across the entire US where members have cultivated, I kid you not, lifelong in-person friendships. They found their people. The sharing and caring that goes on in this community is just breathtaking, and you wouldn't believe the beauty that lives inside of this group. We want you to find the community and connection we all need, and we are waiting for you with open arms. So, come for the great books, but stay for the even greater community of women. Find out more at jenhatmakerbookclub.com. Okay. I think I'd like, before we kind of land the plane here, I'd love for you to tell us anything that you have experienced in your work that has felt hopeful, that has been connective, that has been like a beautiful moment where you just went, this is what we hope for. This is what we work toward. This is some fuel for what it is you do. Anything at all, anything you've seen, any connection you've witnessed, any moment between surprising people, anything you're hearing. Give us a little hope. Give us a little hope from the Capitol.
The people who work in the Capitol are amazing people. It's just, I wish everyone could meet them, especially the police officers on January 6th. And
yeah.
I wish people could see that, the relationships I've built with them and how hard they work. But I used to have, before COVID hit, I had a group on Wednesday mornings. We called it Hump Day Homily.
I love it.
It was Wednesday. We got to get through the week. And so we had floor staff, we had doorkeepers, we had Capitol police, we had
love it.
guys in green shirts who are the ones that, come around and give us water and,
love
take
it.
care of our plants. And we would just get together on Wednesday mornings, and our main goal was, and this is going to sound silly, but for Christians might understand this reference, but I really believe that there will be a new heavens and a new earth, and part of my work as a Christian is to rule and reign with God, meaning, the Garden of Eden was a beautiful place and everything was just, there was fruit in the trees, and then we got kicked out of the garden, right? And but there's this opportunity we have to renew the earth while we're here. Not just that it will happen one day, but that the earth is being renewed right here and now. And so
I like it.
This group actually made a commitment to say, we're going to bring the Garden of Eden to the Capitol. Our job is to make the Capitol a more palatable place. We're going to be salt and light. We're going to make this place a fruitful place. And then we had to stop meeting because of COVID. We had met for a year. And about a month ago or 2 months ago, one of the girls from the group brought me an orchid to my desk. And my desk is probably, or my office. If you're ever at the Capitol, it's the most beautiful room in the Capitol, which is crazy. I don't know how the chaplain got the most beautiful office. And we have a round window that overlooks the National Mall. And my desk is right there. It's amazing. I pinched myself. And she brought me this orchid plant that's still sitting on my desk. And she said in her card, this is your little Garden of Eden. This is you've reminded me that, what she's doing, which is her job is to be on the floor, to just be on the floor. She's a doorkeeper. And so she has to listen to all of these speeches and everything that happens on the Senate floor. And she's trying to bring that part of her world, right? She's trying to make it more beautiful and more palatable for everyone who's around. And it was really hopeful for me to see all of us working together toward this one common goal of, this is going to, can you imagine what the Capitol in DC is going to look like in the new earth? How glorious it will be. And, if I can look out my window and see the National Mall and see the beauty of God and what he has created and just these buildings and the grass and the landscape of it and in people, how much more glorious it's going to be one day. And so we kind of all made a commitment to, let's have that start right now, let's be part of God's work here and now, not just as what is to come and just, survive what's happening here, but let's be kind of the salt and light and renew this place and make it look beautiful. So that would be my story.
That's a great story. That's so lovely. I love that so much. Okay, Lisa. These are just off the top of your head, 3 questions that I'm asking all my guests in the Faith Shakers series. And so here's the first one, and you can just touch down on it. What is the biggest shakeup you have ever had in your own personal faith journey, and how did that change you?
Yeah. So my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and numerous things. We had one really bad year when I was 30, and I was single, and my mom was my best friend, and I was kind of her caretaker and watched her almost die a couple times. And it was the first time I actually doubted my faith. I'm the type of person that's just, God did something in my life. It's so profoundly and won't let me go. And I felt like that year, I remember it was spring in DC, and I felt like, oh my word, it's spring, and spring normally makes me happy, and I'm not. And God sent this person. Anyway, it's a longer story. I'm touching down. And so that was my faith, the time in my life that kind of shook my faith.
Yeah.
And I think at the end, the Lord sent this, this worker out of the building that I was working in. He kind of chased me out the building, and he went to a small Pentecostal Black church.
Yeah.
That's still right down the road as I go into work. And he was like, I heard about your mom and we're praying for her. And I have a word for you. And he told me this word, and he said, you need to go pray for your mom's healing right now. And I said, oh, okay. And I didn't even know this man. And so I thought, well, if I don't go,
that's right. That's right.
So I did. I went and I laid hands on her and I said, Mom, I'm praying for your healing. And that was the end of it. And she had anyway, it was a healing. And I think the Lord, what has said to me is that he is with me in severe trials, and yet he will always send something. You know, it's like he'll send water, he'll send manna, he'll send something when he knows that I'm just about ready to like throw in the towel. And it was what I needed. It was the miracle that I needed to keep going.
Thanks for sharing that. Wow. Okay, here's the next one. Because this series, we're just sort of talking about faith that has been shaken up, and that's not always a bad thing. I don't mean it necessarily in a negative way. It's just, it's just sort of, it's going through evolution, or it's being reexamined, or whatever, or it's in a severe like pressure cooker, like your work, you've got your faith in a pressure cooker. So do you think that it's possible to expand, question some of our faith systems, or even doctrines, without compromising our core beliefs?
Yeah, absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm actually going through seminary right now. I'm taking my last class. It's taken me 5 years.
Good job. What are you getting? What degree are you getting? Are you getting MDiv?
I don't even know. I'm just joking. That's how I feel. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm getting my master's in biblical and theology. So
that's great. Good for you.
Biblical and theology studies. It's been a journey, but that has really opened my eyes, right? To question a lot of things that my faith was based on an experience I had when I was 15 at a Young Life camp. God was very real to me, and I didn't question it. There was no question. And so I think when I went through seminary, I just learned a lot more, right? And I had to really use my brain and start to think about things in different ways.
Yeah, I like this so much.
So it's evolved and changed, but so
I love that answer. Like, we don't faith doesn't mean that we check our brains at the door. Like, we get to bring our minds to the task, and we get to learn and listen and press hard on some old forms and see if they still hold or not. And that to me is deeply faithful work. That doesn't to me at all indicate, oh, I'm wobbling in my faith, or I'm doubting, or I'm slipping, which is, somehow sometimes the way that sort of work is couched. But to me, that demonstrates a serious faith. Like, you are bringing your whole mind, soul, and spirit to bear on this important stuff. And so I love to hear you say that. I'm so excited for you. You have one more class and you're done. This is great.
Yes,
more women with their seminary degrees. Like, I am here for this.
I have a collar now too, which is
a collar. You have a costume. Like, yes, wear that thing. I'd wear it everywhere. I swear.
It's great. It's great.
Oh, good. It's great. So great.
It's great to be a female in this. And, that's been a whole nother journey. And I'm actually going to be studying for my last class. I'm going to write a paper on women in the Bible and the role of women in the church, and discover that on my own, because I have lots of questions, and I'm just diving kind of deep into that as I'm sure.
I can't believe you just dropped this here at the end of the interview. That's what I just said. I can't believe you're dropping this at the end. I'm like, you're in my zip code right now. I'm like, wait a minute.
A whole nother podcast.
A whole nother podcast. I grew up Baptist, and so women didn't have a place. They didn't have a role. A woman going to seminary, that is That is crazy talk. So like you are now in my wheelhouse.
And you know what? I'm going to a seminary. God put me in a seminary at an all Black church. I mean,
Yes.
it's Denver Seminary. It's a Denver seminary, but at a Black mega church where they have women in leadership. And so it was eye-opening on like multiple
gender, racial, like church culture. Like you're at a lot of intersections right there.
I was like one of 3 white people in the whole, you know, and so we just had it was a safe environment for lots of questions. And
I love that environment for you. I absolutely love that environment for you. When we are in any category where I am centered, and so we're not centered as women, but we're definitely centered as white people. Yeah, you know, we have the majority privilege around that. So any category in which I am centered, I take all my cues from people on the margins, all of them. And it is their perspective I go to first. I believe them over the centered perspective. I believe what I'm hearing from the margins. So the fact that you put yourself in a position to learn.
God put me there. I swear, God put me there.
I get it. So here's the last question. And I actually ask every guest in every series this final question. It's by Barbara Brown Taylor. And she was an Episcopal priest. She is an Episcopal priest. Just an incredible woman of faith that has been a mentor to me. So this is her question. And please, by all means, answer this however you want to answer it. It can be earnest and sincere. It can be absurd and silly. We get every answer. So you just answer how you want to answer. This is a question she puts out in the world, which I love. What is saving your life right now?
You and I have something in common. I was on HGTV, but only one episode.
Oh, yes.
I am obsessed with any kind of redoing anything. I'm constant and I have to be busy all the time. So last summer I found a A-frame home about an hour away from DC on the water.
Gosh, what?
It was a mess. And it was a mess. And my husband didn't even see it. I just saw it online and I went down and I put an offer in.
Are you serious?
Said, okay, I guess you can do that. Dead serious. And now it is an Airbnb and it's beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
It has its own Instagram page and its name and a little logo. And I spent the last 6 months because, you know, during COVID, we didn't have to come in every day. And I mean, I couldn't have done this if COVID wasn't around. It was kind of my COVID project. So it's called Hideaway on the Bay. And
oh my gosh,
it's a hideaway. It's my like to go. It's really going to be my sanctuary. And
I love everything.
Yeah. So
I love everything you're saying right now. I cannot wait to get off this interview and go look it up on Instagram. That is a great answer. And I love it. There's something special about restoring something right now when the world feels so hard, when everything just feels so hard. Yes. Life-giving. And I can tell by your aesthetic behind you, you're good at it. And so I'm like, oh, I bet this place is gorgeous.
I love like vintage stores and thrift stores. I love it. It's so fun.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to look at that. Anyway. I want to just thank you so much, Lisa, number one, for being on the show, obviously, and being so transparent with me and my community and talking about things that matter to us too. And then also just for doing your work with so much integrity for so long. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for staying in there. Thank you for fighting for unity and connection and compassion. Your work matters so much. So much. And you set a beautiful example today for my community. I'm delighted to meet you. Just count me in your corner forever. Any way that I can support your work, that I can lift you and your incredible boss up and your crew and everything that you're doing up there. I'm in. So thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, you guys. My hope is that was encouraging. And I really appreciate Lisa's marching orders to do this work of compassion and connection and even reconciliation on the ground, right? It's not just our leaders' job to fix this, to change this from the top down. I do believe that this work is from the bottom up. And it's yours to do, and it's mine to do. And it's good work, and it matters. It will indeed be braving the wilderness. That's a fact. So kind of we need to know that going in. but her example like encourages me and mentors me and instructs me. And I'm proud of her for keeping at this work across all these administrations through all this political volatility. You guys, this whole Faith Shaker series is fire hot, absolutely fire hot. We have some of the smartest, most interesting, incredible, faithful people who are just going to push all the buttons. There's 100% chance at some point during the series, you're going to be uncomfortable, which, is my goal. We really love this series. Laura and her team and Amanda and I were really excited to put this one together. And it just came together so quickly and so beautifully that I just know every guest that we have coming on right now they're meant to be in our community, leading us and guiding us. So don't miss any of it. Thank you for being such faithful listeners and for tuning in week after week, for sharing our shows and reviewing and rating them, subscribing. Thanks for subscribing. Everything matters to a podcast, everything. It's a really crowded space. And so having this really committed group of listeners, this community of listeners, keeps our show going. And I'm so thankful that it does, because every year it gets better. And we're delighted to serve you as always. Come back next week. We have another incredible guest to push us and challenge us and make us think. All right, you guys, have a great week.